Hello, everyone. I'm Frances Bennett, and it gives me a great pleasure to answer questions that are posed by my niece, Ella Bennett. Hit it.
Okay. Keeping in mind that stereotypes for femininity include expectations that women should be domestic, pretty and prissy, emotional, physically weak, and passive, in contrast to men who should be thought of as more competitive, strong, and less emotional than women. Do you believe that gender is binary?
I tell you, initially I thought, initially I said yes. That I thought there was only male and female. However, after giving that question consideration, I don't believe that that's true. I believe that in our society, I know in our society, we have members of our society who are male with female tendencies, and we have members of our society that are female with male tendencies. So because of this, and they are our transgendered brothers and sisters. And so because of this, I have to say that gender is not binary.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do you consider yourself to behave mostly feminine, or do you believe yourself to possess masculine traits?
I consider myself feminine. But can display masculine traits when they're needed, such as in the workforce when I have to be strong and competitive and making sound decisions as the male.
Those are like male traits that you possess.
As the male traits, yes.
Okay. In school, did you ever feel like you were supposed to act a certain way because of your gender, whether it's academically, socially, or emotionally?
Yes. And that's an excellent question, because that brings to mind my third grade teacher, Mrs. Clinton. Well, we called her Miss Clinton. She was a wonderful woman. But Miss Clinton was the epitome of a dainty lady. Every day she came to class, her hair was nicely done, not a strand out of place. Her makeup was impeccable. Her dress, I never saw Miss Clinton in pants. She always wore dresses and skirts. And I remember that if any little girls did something out of the ordinary, acting up in class or something like that, she would say, well, now that's not how a little lady behaves.
Okay, so you will also say that this was a way that teachers or your administration would suggest what girl behavior looked like?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say my teacher, because that's what she told us. And it's funny, I remember that.
Okay. Keeping in mind that a stereotype about women is that we are passive, weaker, and typically have to work harder than men in general to be successful in academia, did this affect you at any time in your schooling, negatively or positively?
I think it affected me positively, because I developed a drive. I set a goal. I developed a drive to achieve that goal, and the fact that I'd always heard that women, men and women in the same job category or level made different salaries. The man always made more than the woman. That drove me to perform better and be very competitive.
Okay, great. Also keeping in mind the stereotypes that is associated with gender. Do you think that teaching or forcing gender specific behavior in school on children is harmful or beneficial? And why?
I think forcing gender on developing children is harmful. Just very harmful. And now children are still developing. They're in a developmental stage, and I think that their development can be hampered by trying to put them into one box or another. For example, I was raised in the 60s, and during that time there were only two careers for women. You would either be a teacher or a nurse or a housewife. And that's how I was raised. Those were the three areas women could go into. And then once I got into high school, I saw another area that women were going into, and then that was being airline stewardess. I saw the advertisements in the magazines and on TV, and it just looked like a very wonderful job for a girl. And so I decided that I wanted to be an airline stewardess. However, when I told my parents that that's what I wanted to do, they told me I would be a nurse.
Okay.
And so,
you believe that children have the right to explore themselves and become fully...
I think children have the right to be who they are.
Hello, my name is Amani Shakate. I am 22 years old, and I'm a graduate of Fisk University.
Hi, Amani. Keeping in mind that stereotypes for femininity include expectations that women should be domestic, pretty and prissy, emotional, physically weak, and passive, in contrast to men who should be thought of as being more competitive, strong, and less emotional than women. My first question is, do you believe that gender is binary?
I think socially, in different societies, gender can be binary, but biologically, not so much. I mean, people are born with third and fourth genders around the world with different body parts, something that's not really much talked about. But I guess genetically or biologically, gender is not always binary.
Okay, great. Do you consider yourself to behave mostly feminine, or do you possess masculine traits?
I don't really believe so much in feminine or masculine traits. I think it depends on what area of the world you are. In America, it may be feminine to behave in X, Y, Z. In another country, it may be feminine to act in a total different manner. So in a society that attributes different to men behaviors and or to women, I guess I just act like myself, and whatever that expression is. Yeah.
In school, did you ever feel like you were supposed to act a certain way because of your gender, whether it's academically, socially, or emotionally?
Maybe just to take the back seat in class. In class, I'm very assertive, always the first one with my hand up. So I guess that's maybe something that a man or a boy or a male should be doing. But that's the only way. It was never too much like competitiveness in the classroom.
Great. Did teachers or administration ever suggest what girl behavior looked like versus what boy behavior looked like?
We would see policing of what women wore to class. So like women, they couldn't wear shirts that were too short or too tight, or skirts that were too tight. But there wasn't as much of the policement over what men or the boys were wearing to class. So that was one of the main ways.
Keeping in mind that a stereotype about women are that we are passive, we're weak, and we typically have to work harder than men in general to be successful in academia. Did this affect you at any time in school, negatively or positively?
Not so much. I was more tuned into being the best me as possible. Not necessarily the best female in the class, but just the best myself. So I just followed my own potential and let that rise.
Do you think that teaching or forcing gender-specific behavior in school on children is harmful or beneficial?
I don't think it's harmful at all, depending on what the gender roles are. I think gender roles help create balance in a society, and they help create order in a society. I think gender roles in America should be analyzed, talked about, and thought through a little bit more before maybe presenting them in a classroom environment. But I don't think there's anything wrong with gender roles in general.
Okay, thank you.